We finished the three international presentations by the three international expertise. So now questions are open to the floor. So do you have any question? Please raise your hand, say your name and affiliation. So question?
¿Alguna pregunta?
So,
preguntas, por favor. Cuando hagan una pregunta, por favor, levanten la mano y digan su nombre.
Just raise your hand and state your name and your company.
Damos la palabra para preguntas, entonces. Tenemos...
I open the floor for questions then.
okay.
Por favor, preguntas.
Questions?
Thank you.
Hola, buenos días.
Good
Mi
morning.
nombre es Jesús Muñoz,
I
soy
am
de la
Jesus
Dirección de
Muñoz.
Vialidad
I am
de
from
la
the
región de
direction of
Coquimbo.
roads from Coquimbo.
Y la pregunta es para los tres.
My question is for the three of you, actually, for the three
Y tiene que ver con lo
speakers.
siguiente.
This is related with
Nosotros
the
acá
following
en
aspect.
Chile,
Here in
la
Chile,
Dirección de Vialidad
the
tiene
direction of roads
responsabilidad en
has
rutas que son
responsibility in
enroladas
routes that
y
are
que están
enrolled
bajo la
and that are
administración de la
under
Dirección de
the
Vialidad de Chile.
administration of the
Pero muchas
Chilean road management system. But many times we have emergencies or catastrophes in routes that are not under our jurisdiction, and we need to act as the Ministry of Public Works to make detection. And we only can do that when we have a decree of catastrophe, when the government, through a document, states that we can act in there. In your countries, in the United States, in Australia, and in Japan, how do you do it? Do you have freedom to act in any route, or does it also depend on a type of instrument or a document so that you can take action?
Okay, so Harvey, are you ready to answer?
Bien, Harvey, ¿estás listo para responder esa pregunta? With a microphone, please. Con micrófono.
In the United States, all disasters start at the local level. So it's up to the locals to ask for help. It's a staged response. But we had a governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and for 4 years, if there's a disaster, he did not wait for local government to ask for help. We mobilized immediately. We have 58 counties in California, and 58 ways of doing things differently. Same thing for the rest of the country. So one government area might have a higher capacity to respond to emergencies, and some others may not. We have a California Office of Emergency Services, which I work with, and it's up to them to make sure that every county gets the help that they need from the state of California and from the federal government. We did have a Hurricane Katrina, that a lot of people died waiting for help. 3,000, I don't know how many, thousands of people died, but I hope that never happens again, because local government failed in the New Orleans area. And they changed the way that the federal government responds to emergencies because of that. So to answer your question, it's a graduated response. So I don't know if I answered the question. Thanks.
Is it okay for you? Okay. So, wait, after Japan. Sorry, I speak in Japanese a little bit. そういう緊急活動をするときに、どんなふうにだったかとか、国との関係だとか、 I will answer your question. I will answer your question. Okay. Basically, our emergency activities were done by the individual highway companies. But of course, the government, the national government, supervise or harmonize or coordinate their activity. But nowadays, we realize that the emergency activities needs a kind of coordination. So now our topic of the emergency activity is the help each other. Otherwise, nothing to do. So our main concern now is the help each other. Did that make sense to you? Okay, so Chris, in the Australian case, please.
Okay, in the Australian case, I explained about that pyramid. At the top of the pyramid where people interact with the emergency, that is a committee that involves both state government people and local government people. So they work together as the disaster management committee. So that could be involved police, emergency services, the local council resources, local authority resources. So they work together to manage the emergency. Later on in the recovery phase, there are some different arrangements, but because the whole road network is affected, we coordinate those works together to make sure the priority routes are established first and then secondary routes are dealt with after that. But there certainly is a high level of cooperation through the establishment of these committees that go through a number of phases. They are told to be on alert, they stand up for an event, and then they stand down after the event. So there's a structure in terms of their approach, and they bring people from all various jurisdictions together to be involved in that committee to manage that event.
Okay. One more question, please. Yep.
Buenos días. Mi nombre es Cristian Bringas, soy de la Dirección de Vialidad de la
I
región de
am
Tarapacá.
from the road management system in Tarapacá.
Y mi consulta es
And
respecto al tema de las
about
inundaciones.
the flooding.
Debido al cambio climático.
Due to climate change and global
¿Qué
warming.
tipo de estudios se
What kind of
llevan
studies
adelante
have
esos
you
perfiles,
carried
para
out
poder,
and that
prever
you
primero
see
posibles
that are
sectores
feasible
de
to
anegamiento o
prevent
inundaciones,
flooding areas,
para poder prevenir,
so that we
justamente
can
este tipo de
prevent
desastres
this
que
type
hemos visto
of
en la carretera de
disasters that we
California
have
o
seen in the road of
Australia?
California or
Y
in
la segunda
Australia?
consulta es
And the
para
second
la
question
consultora de
is
Japón,
for
con respecto,
the
a qué tipo
Japanese
de
speaker, for her,
infraestructura
what type
se puede
of
utilizar o
infrastructure
es
can you
factible hacer
use, or is it
en
feasible to
ciudades de
have
borde costero,
in
porque, por ejemplo, en esta ciudad,
in
una de
sea
las grandes preocupaciones es justamente un
cities,
tsunami
because in
en
there
nuestra
there
mayor,
are
cuando tengamos
possibilities of
terremotos
tsunamis,
o tsunamis.
not
Entonces,
just
¿qué
an
tipo de
earthquake,
infraestructura
also a
se
tsunami.
podría,
So what kind of infrastructure
digamos,
could you
realizar en la
have, could you
ciudad
implement
para
in the
poder
city so that
prevenir
we can
los
prevent this
efectos de
type
un posible
of
tsunami?
situations and the effects of a tsunami? Thank you.
Okay, so first question is regarding the flooding and the prevention study against the flooding. So, Herbie, do you have an idea?
We have a research project called Floodcast. Oops, sorry. Thank you. In the United States, it started in California. We have a research project called Floodcast. And in the state of California, we have three major disasters. There's fires, floods, and earthquakes. But flooding will kill more people than any of those other disaster types. So we've been studying how to make sure we get our field maintenance folks and our designers and our engineers the information that they need when it comes to flooding. So we're looking at tsunami, inundation mapping, just anything and everything related to the transportation infrastructure when it comes to flooding. At the very least, if you have a storm coming in, and if you have snow melting, you should be able to tell your field staff to shut down the road. But with Floodcast, you can do modeling to they have bigger culverts, raise the heights of the bridges. It's in the studies phase right now, the Transportation Research Board. The World Bank is involved in this floodcast. You can go online and Google floodcast, and there's some things available in your country right now if you'd like to participate in floodcast. But flooding will kill more people in the United States than any other hazard. Fire, flood, tornado. Flooding is a major hazard throughout the world, so yes, we're studying flooding, and this also will be a part of the disaster management manual with PR.
Chris?
Yes, similarly, we have flood modelling that works together with the Bureau of Meteorology to understand where the likely impacts of the floods will be. We have very long rivers in Queensland, and it can sometimes flood with no rain in a location because the rain has happened a long way upstream and that flood comes down the river and can flood a city. So in that sense, we can sometimes have a fair bit of warning, number of days warning of a flood that will be coming. We're currently doing a study on our Bruce Highway. Bruce Highway is the coastal highway that runs about 2,000 kilometres up the east coast of Queensland. And we've analysed all the flood catchments within that road. I think there's 700 catchments, and we've understood their impacts on the road and also how they relate to one another, because a number of creeks and rivers flow into other creeks and rivers, and depending on where the rainfall, where the storm is, can impact on which part of the road will be closed. So part of that process is also to look at establishing standards for the particular route, and we look at links within the route, and when we're improving the route, we make sure that that we are bringing the whole route up to an acceptable level. We're not bringing one creek crossing, one river crossing up to a high level, but other crossings mean that the link is not able to be traversed in a flood event. So that's our approach.
Thank you. And I will answer your second question. Okay, you are talking about the how our infrastructure protected against the tsunami. So we consider the two levels of the tsunami. One is a smaller one, and one is the bigger one. One is corresponding to the once 100 years. Once 100 years. Almost this height is close to the level of the high tide. High tide. So our structure, infrastructure, or our management station should be protected such height of the tsunami. So every station should be protected against the high tide or level 1 tsunami. But talking about the level 2 tsunami, we consider the once 1,000 years. Once 1,000 years. That means the biggest tsunami or something like that. In that case, we protected our facility, or we do not protect our facilities. Just we protect some amount of this facility. That means we protect the facility for the need for the reopening of the emergency route. Now we assign the emergency route. Then, so in order to reopen our emergency route, the facilities should be protected. Yeah. But in our case, our Hanshin Expressway, only the 250 kilometers long, but all roads are designated as the emergency route. So that means our facilities, all of the facilities should be protected. Yeah. Does that make sense to your questions? Thank you very much. I think
Yeah, I think too.
I think we have one more question, but the time is already past the 10:30.
So we're ready with
during
the
the coffee time, please ask your question to the presenters. Okay, anyway, thanks to the speakers and the audience, and the next